Welcome to the webinar, Niseko, Inside Asia's Leading Alpine Destination by Delivering Asia Communications and C9 Hotelworks. Yes, I'm very sorry, actually, in that introduction, there weren't any snow pictures. We'll have to change that for next time. This is the 18th in the series of destination and design think pieces that we've been running. And we gather together industry leaders to try to make sense of it all. I'm David Johnson, I'm CEO of Delivering Asia Communications, and I'm going to be moderating the session today. Right, just before we get going, a couple of quick housekeeping points. There's a Q&A function below on your screens. Please ask questions in there as we go. I'll record them and I will ask as many as we can right at the end. The session is also recorded and the presentations are going to be included in that, and you're going to be sent a link to download immediately after, well, about an hour after the session, and then you can download that. Right, let's get going. Niseko, world-class destination, world-class winter sports destination, luxury resort real estate market, recorded close to $2 billion in primary market property sales last year. There's a Park Hyatt, there's an Aman in the wings. There's a lot happening in the destination. And we're going to run through a few key speakers today to find out exactly what's going on. We're going to start with Jonathan Martin, CEO of M&K Niseko. Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you very much, David. And it's a pleasure to see Niseko as a world-class destination actually being recognized in this format. We've long known, many people on the panel have worked there and have recognized the nature and beauty of the area. And then we've all been looking to work in our respective areas to improve the software that makes the guest experience go so much better every time. So I'd just like to share my screen there and run up through some slides that I have prepared. So I'm going to cover off very quickly as much as I can across the development side of it, some real estate, and then touch on the winter ahead of us. One of the main questions that we're always asked as a developer in the area is, do I need to use an international architect or a local architect? So the matrix on screen there is something we've worked up over the years. We've worked under every one of those scenarios, from full offshore to full onshore and everything in between. What we're really looking for is, we look for the cost control mechanism at the bottom. We are in a expensive area to build, and therefore cost control through design is it's the main parameter that we're looking for when people come to us and ask us to help put together a design team. In terms of costings, these are just a graphic showing you, I've split our portfolio since 2008 into pre-2016 and post-2016, really just to show you graphically that when we break it out into high grade, medium grade and low grade construction, what we're seeing in the growth in the pre-2016 and post-2016, you can see it's substantial. So it is a factor that the area is fighting on all levels. We are trying to maintain our cost structures there. At the bottom, the other main question is, what are construction prices doing next year? So we did a bit of an informal survey around our network across architects, medium-sized builders and large builders, looking at material cost and labor cost. And material cost, we don't see any change. If anything, we see down. Currently steel's off 5% on a year ago. In the labor side of the market, there is some changing labor laws coming through that will reduce the hours that men can work on site and the days they can work. So that will extend and push out duration of projects. So on an overall position for 2021, we're looking at cheaper construction costings between 5 and 7% down. And it again depends on how long the COVID-19 continues to impact. Because construction is a high component of what we face up there, we always break down our construction contracts into these 8, 9 generic areas, looking for the weightings. What we're seeing is a movement, a substantial increase in the electrical and mechanical areas. They're very specialized areas. Generally, we work with general contractors, so it's very, very hard to break out the sub-trades, and we'll see where the money's going. The core construction cost is 64%. It's high, and that's another area we break down looking for where it is. We also list the variances there, showing you how much we're seeing between low and high within the components when we're working through those. Moving quickly to last winter, from a real estate perspective, we had a slow start in December. That was largely driven by poor snow conditions and the social media of the world, promoting that as an issue. December is normally the strongest month in sales. It's when we get the most inquiry and the most new to market buyers. Last year, we saw cautious market. We saw a lot of product in market, a lot of differentiation, a lot of offerings. We also noticed that buyers are starting to be very specific in their questions. What specifications are included in what I'm purchasing, down to how are these financials stacked up. Interestingly, our inquiry was on par with the last 3 years leading up to the end of February. What we did see was the conversion cycle was taking longer. So normally we do our most closings, settlements in December, but we saw that move out to February last year. As noted in the July edition of Bill's newsletter, there was a seismic shift into house and land options, and many different product offerings in market there. So that really started moving buyers' views away from straight condominiums to look into that. This slide I just put up because I know it's very topical of where are the buyers coming from in real estate. This relates to our Vale Rizutsu project. We have 185 units there, 104 sold. And what we're looking at there, you can see in blue, Singapore is holding as a normally, we look at around 25% from Singapore. Hong Kong, normally about 25%, a little bit down there, which it's been off for the last 2 years, but it's still a viable market. The red is Japan, the domestic market, and that's a follow on from the Park Hyatt success with the domestic market. So I now think the area can validate that domestic market is a real option in development and real estate sales. Mainland China, we were expecting around 5%. It popped up to 14%, and I think had we not run into COVID, it would have strengthened further. We did see slippage in the Australian, Philippines, Thailand, and Korean markets, which was surprising, and that could have just been poor representation in those areas. And then the shocking discovery was the Americans are buying. So we had a good 5% of our portfolio to date has been sold to US residents. Looking to the future, we are seeing a very strong development pipeline with major players, domestic and international. In domestic, we have Daiwa House, we have Panasonic, Mitsui in the area. We have the global brands, as was mentioned at the beginning, and we're seeing more of those people looking for entry into the market there. There is growing demand for the destination from a buyer's perspective, from an operator's perspective. And off the back of that, we do see a V-shaped recovery once we move out of COVID, and that we see is going to be led out of Asia and China. What needs improving in the area as a destination? We do need to work on marketing. So forums like this are great. As the brands come in, it allows us some strength for destination marketing. And I think that's when the next wave will come through the market. We do need to watch as developers, the city services infrastructure. It is under stress. It is behind in its planning. And again, we need the development teams or developers to help with discussions with councils. What to watch as a destination, we have a lot of product. It's noted in the July report there from Bill. So we need to be careful of differentiation and positioning. We also need to be careful of our value, and that runs from the cost of a cup of coffee through to the nightly bed rentals. We have to match value with what we're delivering. Naturally, we're still dominated by ski hills, so we need to look at the infrastructure, and it's great to see Hanazono putting in new lifts this year. So that's good. And off the back of that, as a destination, we need to look at the wider Hokkaido market. We're obviously working in Rizutsu, Kiroro, Furano, but there's other places like Tamamu even coming online. Just to finish up then, year on year for the winter ahead for us, our bookings are down 90% year on year. So that's the closure of borders. Of the bookings we have, most of it's refundable. or can be transferred. So it's a fluid market at the moment. We did pivot to the domestic market. We are seeing some green shoots coming out of that, but it's a very thin market from what we've seen. In terms of real estate, we're seeing minimal transactions. For what we do notice and have noticed already, there's not distressed asset sales coming through the market, and we don't see that growing in any form. We will see the continue into house and land, and I think that's going to be driven off a global refocus on low density open air destinations for family time for holidays. There will be some transactions, some deals done as the developers with unsold stock past 6 months post completion, they need to pay the government acquisition taxes. So they may be looking to pass on some of that discount to buyers. In terms of development, new projects are continuing in the planning stages. We're working on a large number of those. Will they go into construction in spring? We won't know that until early January in the contracting month. But we still are seeing a lot of new entrants coming and asking for land, for looking at sites in those areas. And to close out, I can't close out without saying that it's definitely going to be a year of Murphy's Law. It's going to be a sensational ski season, no doubt. Lots of snow, lots of powder snow to ski, but no people. So everyone on the forum, if you can get to Niseko, come skiing. Thank you.
Jonathan Martin, Chairman and Founder of Nisade, Niseko Alpine Developments. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. We'd all love to be there enjoying the powder, that's for sure. Right, we're going to move to Gordon Oldham. Gordon Oldham is the founder of Pavilions Hotels and Resorts. Gordon, welcome.
Hi.
Hi, David. Great stuff. Hi there. I'm just going to run through a few questions about the about your brand and the destination. Actually, I mean, Pavilions it's a brand that's grown out of the tropics, Bali, Phuket. So what drew you to the mountains? What drew you to Niseko?
It's mountains are my favorite element, so I'd rather be there than in a jungle. The truth is that since the last 3 or 4 years, as you well know, we've had a big expansion. So I know this is not a sales fest, but I will tell your viewers that we're currently in Madrid, Lisbon, Amsterdam. We have 3 hotels in Rome, one of which is under construction. And then, of course, we have Bali and Phuket. We have 2 properties in Nepal. And, of course, one of the better ones is our 3-month gear camp in Mongolia, which is nothing but an excuse but to drive Range Rovers over the steppes and get on a horse all day. So why the mountains? Well, obviously, it is, as Jonathan has said, a world-class, and as you've said, a world-class destination. I personally love the mountains, and to tell you the truth, there's been a degree of self-indulgence on everything we do. You may, it'll become obvious as we go along, is that we're not so concerned about the properties in Revivo. I find that we talk a lot about experiential, but very few of us do it. So you'll hear hoteliers talking about the experience, et cetera, but the vast majority of GMs, in my humble opinion, don't do anything about it. So as far as I'm concerned, it's the experience. And what better experience can you do than go into the mountains, go to Nepal, go to Mongolia, et cetera. And then we try to balance that with the European experience in the various capitals. So that's a long way of saying I just love mountains. And at my age and my stage in life, I just wanted to build something there.
Right.
That being said, I've been there 8 times so far, and I've never managed to get on a set of skis. So. Perhaps.
Okay, well, hopefully, you could change that soon and get to some of that powder. But hey, you're mainly a hospitality brand. How do you find the balance between hospitality and property, hotels and property, if you like? Is it a difficult balance to keep?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but you can't have hospitality without a property. And although it is a question of self-indulgence, quite frankly, at the end of the day, we've got to pay for all of this. So what we've tried to do in the past is combine construction with the hotel. So as you well know, in Phuket, I built residences, I built villas. In Bali, similar sort of operation. And that's what we're doing in Niseko. So apart from the actual hotel that's under construction, we started off building show houses and selling plots of land. So
have you found that the strength of the Pavilions brand has that really helped as the Pavilions hospitality group, if you like, has grown? Has that helped sell real estate?
My sales girl would probably say, well, it's 100% due to her efforts, but it has to help. I mean, it's you get a lot of developers who are going up there for the first time and building something, and then it's a question of having faith in their ability. It is nice to be able to say, look, here's something that I did previously. We've come to what must have been 9 or 10 hotels, and 7 of those are in the last 4 years. So, I mean, there's actually credit proven there as opposed to credit worthy. So I would has helped, yes.
No, the market, before COVID, things were trucking along quite nicely. How do you? I mean, do you see things being picking up fairly quickly when things are all over? Do you feel that the market will pick up from where it left off?
You know, the surest way and the quickest way to the bankruptcy court is relying on the opinion of experts. I'm not an expert. I'm not a fortune teller. I do know that, you know, even World War II came to an end eventually. What will happen after COVID is over? I have no idea. Of course, there are those who are saying that the pent-up demand is there, so you will have people traveling. On the other hand, you've got hotels now who are practically giving away their rooms. So will people get used to lower rates? I simply don't know. I just want to continue with giving a good quality service, a beautiful properties in beautiful surroundings. And I think there always has been and there always will be a demand for that. If I can get that little step ahead by going one further and giving people that experiential element that seems to be lacking with most hotels, then I think we're ahead of the game. If not, I'm stuck with 10 beautiful villas in Hokkaido, and I'll just make them.
No, but so those 10 beautiful those beautiful villas in Hokkaido, in developing in Japan. I wonder if you can just share with them, share with the audience just a few of your learnings. You know, it doesn't always go perfectly. You know, some of the good learnings, some of the good experiences, maybe some of the less good experiences. Some
David,
of the challenges.
And no disrespect to Thai construction outfits, but I built over the space of what must it be, 10 years now, 3 different phases of pavilions there, until I reached a stage where I said, to hell with it, I'm just going to start my own construction company. So everything is relative. I've also built in Bali and carried on business in Bali. So it's a dream in Japan as far as I'm concerned, really. If you're told that it's going to be delivered on January the 1st, it will be on January the 1st. The only thing, as Jonathan made reference to, is the expense up there. It's very expensive, but maybe I'm just being naive, but I'm doing this construction, not exactly eyes closed, but I have a lot of faith in the people who are assisting us, whether it's Alt, whether it's the builders themselves. So the lesson I've learned is everything is relative, and so far so good.
Good. Tell me, you've talked about experience a few times during our conversation. In the experience of the powder snow in the winter months is legendary in Niseko. But what can the destination do to become an all-round destination? There's a lot more to Niseko than skiing.
Well, Jonathan, in one of his suggestions at the end, intimated that there has to be destination marketing. That's why things like this are great. also the authorities have to jump on the, not jump on the bandwagon, that's a wrong expression, but they have to realize that effort has to be made to get people there. And summer in Niseko is absolutely divine. I mean, I don't have to persuade anybody on the panel here, and probably the majority of the viewers, that Hokkaido offers just so much. And they've seen it in winter. My suggestion is see it in summer. It's everybody's dream, especially as I know you're going to talk about the Chinese market. You know, what young guy and family doesn't want to drive around on unobstructed roads and eat great Japanese food at affordable prices and be out in the countryside instead of sweltering in the summer of a Bali or the rains of Phuket.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And you did steal my thunder a little bit there about the Chinese market. And so now you're going to be asked about the Chinese market. I mean, how important mainland Chinese market? Jonathan had some interesting information about that. How important is this market to the destination? How important is this for tourism? How important is this for property sales?
The only bit of research I did in preparation was the Chinese market, actually. Oh, and in 2019, there were 9.6 million Chinese visited Japan. I can't tell you how many of them went on to Hokkaido or Niseko, but I can tell you that the optimum numbers traveled in, or the biggest numbers traveled in July and August. So if we can divert some of those up to Hokkaido, I think they're going to be knocked out with what is on offer up there. And its importance or not doesn't come into it for me. It is something that is going to happen. In absolute numbers, we all know the Chinese market, and even if 0.1 of them decide to come to Niseko or Japan, that's an awful lot of real numbers. And if a smaller number of those, if the majority of those decide to go in summer, winter, buy a house, not buy a house, rent a hotel room, etc., we're talking about big numbers. And I think it's inevitable, given the Chinese preoccupation with eating well, and especially Japanese food at affordable prices. I think at the end of the day, they prefer that than going to Switzerland and eating raclette and a bunch of potatoes. So
just food first.
Food first, yes. Affordable food first. So it's going to happen. There's very few things in that I would ever say with any certainty. But apart from the Japan and China fighting about offshore islands or another massive earthquake, I think it's inevitable that we're going to see increasing numbers of Chinese in Japan.
Gordon Alderman, thank you very much indeed, founder of Pavilions Hotels and Resorts. Don't go anywhere, please, Gordon. There's going to be some questions for you at the end. But we're going to move over to some more data. We talked about 9.6 million Chinese in 2019. Let's dig down on the data a little bit. And we have STR's business development manager in Japan, Shiori Sakurai. Shiori, please join us. You need to unmute, please.
Great. Oh, thank you very much for your introduction, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. I'm very pleased to introduce you all the latest hotel market trend in Japan, Hokkaido, and Greater Niseko areas through STR research today, with some local perspective as an only Japanese speaker based in Japan here. Okay. And before moving on to the presentation, STR is a leading data provider for the hotel market benchmarking and analysis globally. And our coverage in Japan with over 1,200 hotels has the highest share as a hotel market data, including all three major KPIs such as occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR. And our hotel market data is configured by the international hotel chains such as Hilton, Park Hyatt, and upcoming Ritz-Carlton for Niseko market, for instance, and also the major Japanese hotel chains, which actually has the higher share than international hotels in Japan. Now, let me move on to the first graph that shows the daily occupancy in Japan average from March 1st this year to the end of July, in order to highlight the period with COVID-19 impact. After the government request for the major event cancellation at the end of February, the March monthly occupancy dropped to 33%, which was actually the lowest record since 1996, even compared with the GFC back in 2008 and Tohoku earthquake back in 2011. And with the state of emergency for 7 prefectures, including Hokkaido, started from April 7th to the end of May, the monthly occupancy dropped again to 14%, 1 point% in both April and May, and replaced the worst record of March. And after the almost 2 months of state of emergency period is released at the final week of May, we could see the slow recovery pace in June with the normal weekly patterns, which the Saturday has the highest occupancy in the week. However, COVID-19 second wave hit Tokyo from July, and the occupancy dropped again concerning the spread of the new cases to the peak on August 7th. Despite this second wave concern, government implemented the nationwide travel campaign, which government supports 20,000 Japanese yen per night per person, up to the half of the travel revenue, excluding departing from and arriving at Tokyo from July 22nd. And Japan finally reached 46% daily occupancy on the day right after the campaign launch and the first day of 4 days long weekend on July 23rd. However, the August preliminary occupancy level is very similar to June, with the concern of the spread of virus, and the government travel campaign impact seems so-so level when we look at the average in Japan. However, I have a great news for Hokkaido industry, that the market will almost reach the 60% weekly occupancy after the travel campaign were only Hokkaido. It's the absolute occupancies for the every single market with the each dot here on a weekly basis since January to the week ending August 15th. From state of emergency where the occupancy generated 5 to 10% bigger than the Japan. The top 3 market with Tohoku and Chugoku Shikoku with the travel campaign at the week of the center of summer holiday season, the week of August 15th in Japan. Now, let's focus on occupancy since March this year. June data was missing due to the hotel temporary closures. July shows the slow recovery compared to April and May, but not yet reached to the March level yet, and much lower compared to Japan all market average, which is 29% in the month of July. However, the Niseko daily occupancy after the travel campaign with the long weekend in July actually outpaced Japan average. Niseko OCC exceeds the 50% line against the Japan average. The potential to generate the performance with the Japanese domestic travelers or leisure segments in summer somehow, not only with the international travelers such as before COVID-19. And as we may all know, the recovery usually starts with the domestic leisure market anywhere in the world until the business and international travelers come back. Focusing on maximizing domestic leisure booking channel continues to be a key upon surveying the future performance monitoring and update, please feel free to contact me directly in Hokkaido daily performance data, which can be activated as soon as your hotel performance data is submitted. Thank you very much for listening, and Q&A to be taken at the last of the event. So I'm looking forward to accepting the Q&A at the end. Thank you very much.
Great. Chiori, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that information, that data. Please be reminded, everyone, that these presentations are going to be available for download at the end. So you're going to be able to receive that. Okay, Andrew Craig, Country Development, Country Director, Japan Elite Havens, Property Rental Market. Do you want to give us some information on that, please? Andrew, you with us? Andrew, you need to, you need to unmute, please. Hi.
Gotcha. Okay. So in terms of property management and villa rentals in Niseko, Elite Havens is very optimistic and very positive about how things have been going. Obviously, we're going through a blip now with COVID-19, but the future does look very promising for the Niseko area. Some of the positives about the area, and especially Niseko, is Japan allows foreign ownership. So for all of our villas here, they're owned by foreigners, not so much Japanese. So the entry into the market is far easier than in other markets where we manage property, such as Thailand and in Bali, where foreign ownership of land isn't, it is possible, but there's a lot of barriers to get there. Here is a cash market. So owners are pretty much buying with cash, and there's very limited sources of finance for foreigners. Our ownership profile traditionally has very much been people from Hong Kong, whether local residents or expatriates, Australians and Singaporeans. However, in the last few years, we've seen new owners emerging from China. So we've got 3 or 4 owners who are Chinese based now, and also from Thailand. So that's a nice little trend that we're starting to see. Operationally, all of our villas essentially produce an operating profit every year. So they cover all of their marketing and maintenance expenses, and they pay their taxes, and they seem to be able to put a little bit of money aside, which they can put away for renovations or slip into their pocket. So all of our houses, even despite the limited season of just the winter where most of their revenue is earned, they're all tending to earn a profit, which is positive. This year might be a little different, but going forward, I think that trend will continue. All of our owners tend to use their properties at some stage throughout the year. Mainly they avoid using it in peak seasons like Christmas and New Year and Chinese New Year, and they use it outside of those dates to try and maximize their revenue. And I think it was mentioned before that infrastructure in the area is playing catch up on the property development. It's very much a development driven market. So I think things like water supply to the town and facilities like that need to quicken up or come at a faster pace to keep up with the development in the area. Our markets at the moment, summer is pretty much 90% Japanese, local tourism, domestic tourism. Winter is very much a spread of all nationalities. We do get probably about 20% local or domestic business usually, but traditionally Australia, Hong Kong and Singapore, about 10 years ago, were making up 75% of the visitors to Niseko here. That's dropped down to about 50% now. However, a lot of other nations are starting to visit in those 10 years. So those 3, Australia, Hong Kong and Singapore, are still very much our largest visitors. China, increasing rapidly, gone from 4% 10 years ago to about 13%. And Thai visitors are also touching about 5% of total visitors in winter. So that's mainly due to a lot of direct flights coming out of Bangkok now. The surprising one for us in the last 2 years has been United States and Canada coming here over winter. they seem to be taking advantage of the reciprocal ski passes that they purchase, seasonal passes that they purchase in the States, like the Icon Pass and the Mountain Collective, and they can use them here for a week on the mountains in Niseko. So that has encouraged a lot of US and Canadian visitors. In terms of where our bookings come from, in most of our other markets, there's about a 40% agent, 60% direct booking split. Here, it's not too different. However, there's a massive push in OTAs. OTAs in our other markets, they produce some business for us, but not traditionally too much. It's more specialized villa agents. Here, villa agents are only producing about 5% of our business, and 35% is all OTAs, such as the Airbnbs and Booking.coms and the Rakutens, which are the local companies. So that's a little bit different to our other markets. The quality of accommodation, I think here every year is increasing. So all the new builds are starting to build with finer materials, more facilities. People are putting in jacuzzis and gym equipment, bunk rooms for kids, fully internet connected. So all of those modern cons that guests are looking for are very much the norm now with all of the new builds. What else was I going to say? So that was about it. In terms of revenue, revenues have been increasing year on year by about 10%. Unfortunately, with COVID, we saw our season cut very early, early to mid-March, so everything dropped. For all of this year, we've been running promotions, which for summer has been excellent with the local market. And hopefully with the Go Travel promotion that was just mentioned earlier, we'll start to attract a few more Japanese domestic visitors to the area this year in the absence of any international market. So that's our focus this year, is solely on Japan. And hopefully things will get better in the next few months and into next year, and we can see an international market returning.
Andrew, thank you.
You're
Excellent, great insights. Please stick around. There's going to be some questions for you a little bit later. Okay, we now have Eddie, the CEO of M&K Niseko. Eddie, you there?
I am indeed. Thank you.
Okay, great. What have you got for us?
Well, I want to talk about a couple of things. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
All right. So basically, I want to talk about what's happened for us this summer, what's happened, what we think is going to happen this winter, and then talk a little bit about the real estate market. Okay, I'm going to work out this summer screen, the sharing screen, very shortly. But if not, you will hear me talk. So this summer, we've seen less people this summer, naturally. But to be honest, it was down to 2017 levels. So we're down 20% from last year, but our revenue is down. Oh, thank you, Sumi. Thank you. So our guest numbers, like I said, we're on par with 2017, down 20% on last year, but closer to 30% from a revenue perspective due to the discounts and fewer guest services being booked. In terms of trends that we've seen, there's been a change in preference from hotels and package stays to standalone homes, which is understandable given the situation. This year, there are also many more last-minute bookings with people carefully watching the case numbers, as you would expect. About 70% of our stays were 1 or 2 night stays over the weekends from guests based in Hokkaido itself. Another trend we saw was renewed interest in long-term stays. We had small companies, school groups, we had a small wedding. And this year we also have young families relocating from Honshu and staying for a year or more. Thank you. So catering to the domestic market is not easy. You can't do it quickly. We had to have a plan, and we've been marketing in Japan for 9 years. And as it became clear that COVID-19 would take out international travel, we decided to maintain all of our staff and go for the domestic market. We're fortunate. We have a great core of Japanese-speaking staff who are already in place, but we also took the opportunity to retrain our non-customer-facing Japanese staff to support the frontline team. Our target market is families because 90% of our inventory is standalone homes. And to attract families, we set up a summer camp many years ago, and that was primarily to cater to international guests who'd never been to Niseko, but we've also had Japanese guests every year, and they bring their children to learn English. Like everything else, we had to modify the adventure summer camp this year to ensure safety and to meet the requirements for the Japanese parents. Lastly, with the domestic market, catering to them, the F&B situation had to evolve, with restaurants having to enforce physical distancing, provide outdoor dining and takeaway menus. Niseko did not have a takeaway culture. So this summer has been a bit of a challenge, and it will continue to evolve. Next slide, please. I'll try not to be too repetitive. The government support has been tremendous. We're grateful to both the Hokkaido and central government to make an effort to support the hospitality industry. The Domewari program in Hokkaido was particularly helpful because that gave Hokkaido residents a nice discount for staying in a Hokkaido accommodation. The Japan-wide Go-To campaign has also given people the confidence to travel, and it's had a positive impact. But beyond this, and the reason why we stayed open and we didn't reduce staff numbers is the government has been providing cash payments to residents, as has been done in many other countries. The government is supporting companies by paying a portion of salaries to full-time staff for not working. There's been subsidies paid to businesses to be closed, such as restaurants during the state of emergency. And they've also provided loans with attractive financing terms. So the government support's appreciated, it's been effective, and I hope it continues. A few of you have mentioned this, and I just want to echo the point about green season being the future. For Niseko to absorb the new supply in real estate coming, we have to expand the guest numbers outside of winter. And to do this, as Gordon said and Jonathan said, we have to create a compelling guest experience because people have a choice of where to go in summer. When you look at other resorts, what we need to do in Niseko is we need to offer more events, more entertainment, indoor activities, and connect guests to the artisans and Japanese culture that's all around us. When people are coming from Asia, that's what they want. And no one company can do this alone. We have to work together in partnership with the government. And there have been positive steps taken, and I hope this will continue. So, green season is the future, and winter is what differentiates Niseko. To be honest, I'm surprised at how much demand there has been for winter and how many inquiries we continue to receive. No doubt the flexible cancellation and payment policies have contributed to this. But beyond that, people want to travel. When it's hot and humid, as it is in Asia now, people want to come to the snow. And like everyone else, we've shifted our effort to the domestic market to follow up on the summer demand. And as Japanese guests tend to book last minute, we'll find out the results of that marketing effort. It's going to be a challenging year this year because most of the hospitality business in Niseko relies on seasonal staff. We normally double our staff with seasonal workers who help with driving, snow clearing, and front desk. If the guest numbers are low enough, I suppose we'll be able to get by with full-time staff. But if the borders open up right before or during winter, there'll be a scramble to recruit and retain seasonal staff. It will be a unusual winter, that is for sure. Shifting gears from hospitality to real estate, the market for us has been steady. We're a developer. We're building new homes this year, and we've sold more land. We're also an agent. In that capacity, we've been able to sell land and house packages at close to asking prices. We've also been able to find long-term tenants for our owners who were concerned about winter, and that's been a big help. Our transaction volume is down, but there are a lot of inquiries from investors who are searching for the distressed assets that I also agree will probably not be coming. Like Jonathan said, we've also seen a construction cost plateau, if you will. And, you know, it's likely that that plateau or you know, lack of rise in price will hopefully push some new developments forward. It looks as though most developers are going ahead with their plans. We've heard of a few that have been slowed or delayed. We've started infrastructure works on 2 new developments because we believe there's still value to be found. And look, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that Niseko's real estate will continue to be attractive. Buyers will be more selective and sellers will be more accommodating. And with that, I hand it back to you, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Thanks a lot. Yeah, fascinating stuff. We're going to switch gears a little bit now too. We're going to go to design. We're going to go to Vincent McAlduff, who's a partner at Alt 254. Vincent, are you with us?
I am indeed. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just going to run through a brochure kind of document that's available on our website. It's kind of the do's and don'ts for building in Niseko, but just to touch on the current theme as well, for us during this COVID period, it actually hasn't slowed down, which is quite surprising. In Hong Kong and other markets that we work in, obviously it's slowed down quite a bit. But even our new inquiries and new projects in Niseko have basically kept steady. All the projects, obviously Gordon's Pavilions being our main one, is still under construction, still moving ahead as planned, which is great. But for us, it's quite promising to see a lot of Hong Kong clients still come through the door, still asking about land, still inquiries, and starting new contracts as well. So even this year, we've started 3 new houses, mom and dad kind of clients. So for us, that's quite positive as well. I'll just bring up my screen here. So you should be able to see it now. You see that okay?
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah, so a little bit different is not really talk about the actual design, but I want to talk about sort of the problems that clients come to us, what we have when clients come to us, essentially the limitations on building in Japan, and kind of the first things that we have to tell them as well. As Jonathan was saying, for example, you know, it is a seasonal, obviously, sales environment. So clients hit us in March. So normally they go there over the ski season, they ski, they fall in love with the place. Obviously, they buy a beautiful plot from Pavilions and the likes, and then they come to us to try and deliver a project for them. It's very often that they're disappointed when we tell them that it cannot really be delivered in one season. Even for small properties, you know, we talk here about the design time is around 3 months. The build time is around 9 to 12 months. And given that, and also with how the contractors work recently, i.e. they're very packed in terms of workload, it's stretching further and further. As Eddie touched on a little bit as well, you know, build costs are plateauing. So we've seen a 10% kind of increase per year. Well, at least 5 to 10% per year increase in build costs from our contractors that we're tendering out to. And in the last 2 or 3 years, that's slowed down. So over the 7 years we've been building there, only in the last, let's say, 2 years has it really become more steady. Those build costs, as well, as Gordon pointed out, are probably some of the most expensive in the world, unfortunately. And again, it's really down to quality of finish. For us, we tend to build at a quite a high-end finish level, and that's, again, the clients are looking to rent it for a premium. So we normally build to a 5-star kind of hotel level too. So bringing those clients through that, and also kind of explaining to them that there is an upside to that, of course, as well. The resale value is obviously very high, and their yield, of course, is quite high as well, and given to rent it. But the upfront investment and the ability, or the limited ability for them to get funding, is also where mainly where projects stop for us. So once a client comes through the door and we explain these things to them, then normally sometimes rethink what they're looking to do. A good example would be the average size of a build. A lot of clients come to us looking to build 1,000 square meters. A mainland Chinese or Hong Kong client looking at a very, very big opulent house, and we tell them that that is 10 million US dollars, you know. So for them, it's normally reined in, but of course, just like was discussed earlier, we try to design around things that work for, one, the yield, and two, the user. So building in, you know, smaller usable bedrooms, building in things like kids bunk bedrooms, usable areas that, you know, are adaptable, like kitchen, living, dining, to maximize space is all quite important. Also, one of the things that we tend to push our clients in the direction of is outside space. So for instance, we have lots of covered balconies, covered areas where they can have barbecue, because as you guys were saying as well, even us as designers and architects are trying to push them into the mindset of that summer use as well. Because for us, we build there throughout the summer, so we're there majority of our time in the summer, and the whole office here love it, you know. So people are sort of up until COVID and we couldn't travel, everyone was climbing over who gets to go on site basically as well. As Jonathan discussed as well, the architecture fees differ quite substantially between just by different companies. There's a lot of higher, very famous architects working in Niseko at the moment now, like Kengo Kuma, for example. And then that goes right down to very small local firms as well. So you can expect to see a very broad difference in price there too. Things that clients also don't think about is innkeeper's license, for example. That's a significant price increase. That innkeeper's license allows the property to be rented in short term. So if you want to rent it out during the winter for clientele, you need to have that included as well. So, and also what was discussed about is the infrastructure. We find more and more now projects, even with connection to town water systems, we have to put in a well, or we have to put in septic tanks, things like that, because the pressure or the allowance for that water is diminishing. Basically, the infrastructure locally isn't keeping up with the demand too as well. Other cost factors which clients don't really think about at the start is furniture. Furniture is also extremely expensive in Japan. For a lot of the projects, Gordon's Pavilions house here shown on the screen, they brought in furniture from abroad, and that actually brings up the quality set quite substantially, but also brings down the cost per house drastically. So that's something that clients can think about straight away from as well. These are also some pictures of Pavilions house on site. So you can see very large, very open space. And a lot of these materials we brought in from abroad as well. So not just from Niseko itself. Suggestions to reduce the build cost. A lot of clients, this point is a lot of clients come to us and they want a Japanese house and they want it built out of concrete. We tend to push them away from that. We tend to push them towards wooden frame construction. One, it's faster and cheaper, but also for us in our experience, it works, it handles the weather environment quite well. And there's very limited cracking, there's very limited issues around that. So, but the restriction there as well is 3-story buildings. So if you're building a 3-story house, for example, the first floor has to be concrete, and that raises the price a little bit. So by sticking to 2-story plan and using wooden construction techniques, it can really help bring down the cost and of course the speed of the turnaround from the project as well. In terms of what clients ask for us is what they're looking for in an architect as well, but also in contractors and local consultants too, is just an experience building in Hokkaido. We started building there 7 years ago. Obviously, Jonathan's been building there for 30-something years, so a massive amount of experience. But over the last 7 years building there, we have learned a lot. For us, we have worked with external and third-party architects from abroad as well, from Australia, from Hong Kong here, that were brought onto a project. And really, it's very site-specific design. There's certain things that it's very hard to think of, it's very hard to come across that need to be included for somewhere like Niseko that often isn't included. And that becomes a real problem. And a lot of the times we're sort of hired to come on and remedy those solutions as well. The contractors, are very broad range, especially in Niseko, especially in building in smaller projects. So there's a very large quality difference in the contractors themselves and a huge price range. Some of the contractors we could tender to could be twice the price of others. So that's something to really watch out for. You know, make sure no matter who you're building with, make sure to get a competitive tender for 3 or 4 different contractors before signing up as well, based on the design that has been approved by the client themselves. In terms of investment, we're not really investors, or we're not certainly not experts. And but they do ask us a lot. We point them in the right direction, our clients normally, in terms of what you know, sales and marketing people are telling us, what the likes of C9. We actually use your Niseko information booklet all the time, showing clients where they should be pitching, what size they should be building at, what sort of quality, and for the yield and the resale value as well. But in terms of us, what we're getting in is clients that are, it was touched on a little bit, it's clients that are coming obviously for investment opportunity, but it's definitely a lifestyle one. For instance, we get clients that are building a house now, but they really don't plan to sell for 20 years. They want to use it to grow their families, to get their families into skiing. They want to have a beautiful, you know, place they can go in the summer with beautiful food, and food tourism as well for our clients is a massive one. In fact, the majority of our clients aren't there to ski. They're there for food tourism, which is quite surprising as well for us. So the clients that are coming across our door are definitely people that are investing. They like the idea of the upside, the investment potential, but it's a personal investment from them. It's their house, it's their dream home. And what we see is it's people looking to stay there for a substantial amount of time before thinking about reselling as well. So for us, it's a good sign. It's a good steady market. And especially from here in Hong Kong, we see, it's interesting to see also the sales from Jonathan too on the Risitsu property, coming a lot from Singapore and China as well. We see the same uptick this year too. Far more mainland Chinese clients coming to us, as opposed to, our clientele was about 90% Hong Kong. So we see a significant uptick in that as well. But the Chinese, just like the Hong Kongers in our experience, are coming there for a slice of Japan, basically something that they can hold on for quite a long time.
Vincent, thank you.
No worries.
Excellent insights. Much appreciated. Jules Kay, Managing Director, ProperyGuru Asia Property Awards. Jules, we kept you waiting for a little while there. I know you've got an exciting announcement for us. What have you got, Jules?
Yeah, well worth the wait. Learned a lot of positive updates there about Niseko, which gives me even more confidence in running the awards there this year. I mean, yes, as people hopefully know, the ProperyGuru Awards run across 15 countries in the region, and we're always looking to expand where we see destinations that show specifically very high quality residential commercial developments going up and an opportunity for growth. And Niseko has both of those things. So although it's obviously going to be slightly tempered in terms of celebratory atmosphere this year due to COVID, we're still launching our Property Awards Greater Niseko Japan this year, which will be part of our grand final awards gala at the end of the year, but in Thailand. We have already had some nominations and entries for the Niseko section of the awards. And the obvious reason for this is because there's such a high quality of residential project to choose from there. And we have therefore engaged some rather high quality judges to match, including two of our panel today, Mr. Bill Barnett and Andrew Craig, who will be on the judging panel this year to ascertain which of these fantastic properties deserve to be awarded at a regional level. The other thing the Property Awards do, obviously, is maintain awareness and momentum for different parts of the market that are performing well and that will be resilient as we move out of the COVID challenges based on their various attributes. And Niseko is unique in that it, we've heard this today already, it's a potential as a year-round destination. The sheer volume of high quality developments and hospitality projects that have gone up there over the last few years make it a really irresistible place for many people to invest. And obviously Japan's foreign ownership laws allow foreigners to invest in property there, which makes it a much more attractive prospect than many other resort destinations in Asia. So yeah, we're excited to launch the Greatest Niseko Awards as part of our regional series, which stretches from Australia up to China now. And obviously the exposure that gives to a destination across all the countries within the awards is also a useful opportunity for cross-border investment, joint ventures, etc. And that comes together at our Asia Real Estate Summit every year as well, which takes place in December. So yeah, great destination, huge potential, and we feel many properties deserving of awards. So we're looking forward to announcing those winners later in the year. Nominations and entries are still open at the end of September. We're looking forward to seeing more developers coming in with their projects so that we can award them as they deserve in 2020 and continue to do so in the years to come. So yeah, very excited to be part of the Niseko story.
Great to hear something so upbeat. Thanks very much, Jules. Bill Barnett, you're the last on the panel, I'm afraid, today. What have you got for us?
Oh, hi there, David. Actually, I was watching in Zoom. I didn't realize I need a haircut. Well, actually, you don't need a haircut anyway, so it doesn't matter.
No.
I really do need a haircut, but I'll go right out after this. I had a nice PowerPoint, but fuck it, let's not do that. Let's just change something. Maybe let's talk about Niseko on a broad understanding. Let's get inside the numbers. You will receive the PowerPoint. You'll get all the numbers you want and everything else. But I think what is interesting about Niseko is let's understand the cycle. You know, real estate markets and property markets are cyclical. Niseko is interesting. It's not like Bali or Phuket, which were tourism-driven markets and real estate came afterwards. Niseko's a real estate market which evolved into tourism as well. We can look at other markets like that. Queenstown in New Zealand certainly led with this type of thing. Whistler in the early days certainly had the condo hotels and these type of things. So we've understood that the first people coming in were real estate led the way. You know, the Australians came in and they started developing condo hotels. You started developing houses as well and developing these type of properties. Eventually some hotels started to creep into the system. People said, oh, why not make it into a tourism market, broader tourism market as well. So I think let's understand the cycle. And Niseko has been probably one of the best real estate markets in the world over the past 5 years in terms of when we see the appreciation, the amount of money which is going, everything's making money in Niseko. And I think what we understand is we probably reached the top of one cycle. You know, it's interesting when we look at our report, you'll see from the data, we're starting to see condo sales certainly slow down a bit. You know, I think that's an indication in terms of the absorption and everything else. We're seeing that supply and demand are coming more equilibrium now in the past. You know, if you go back 3, 4, 5 years, certainly demand was higher than supply. So we're finding some equilibrium. This is not a bad thing because again, nothing goes up in straight lines. What it starts is the entry of another cycle. And I think Jonathan talked about it earlier, and certainly we have Harafu as a prime, you know, upper village, middle village, lower village in terms of these condo type properties. We're seeing Hanazono come up certainly with the Park Hyatt. Again, Onapuri in these areas as well. We've certainly seen Niseko Village, but we're starting to see a spread of a breaking up of the markets into other areas. I think Jonathan talked about it before, was saying we're all of a sudden seeing, you know, underlying land prices in Niseko or Harafu are becoming so expensive, we're seeing a broader spread in new areas. We saw Rusutsu come up. We've seen Kororo. I think Tamamu we talked about earlier. Also, we're seeing Furano. So we are seeing some diversity again, and this is good for a broad market because there was one question, actually somebody asked a question early on saying, what about the ski capacity? You know, Niseko's bread and butter is the ski mountains and how much capacity and when are those going to become modernized? And I think that's really key also for the winter market. That question, I think they're going to come back with the godfather of Niseko tourism there, Jonathan Martin, asking that question later on. That term is a critical issue, but when we see Hanazono and we're starting to see investment lots and we're seeing speculation in these type of products, that usually signals to us that we're at the top of a cycle. So where do we go next with Niseko? And I think that's interesting when we're seeing more housing estates. We are seeing people taking a broader term. So it's not just the condos. And we're seeing more hotels. That's a positive. Having Park Hyatt come into Hanazono, that's a really good thing. We see the Ritz-Carlton, which will open up this year as well. That's going to be another thing. We see the Aman in the pipeline. these hospitality brands. Why is it good? Because it's going to do overseas marketing for the destination. I think that's really important to the storyline, you know, in terms of these hotel properties coming in and this market, again, going to the next cycle. You know, it's interesting, people ask about the Japanese market. Statistically, the summer months in Niseko are higher in terms of the sheer volume of travelers, because you have the bus tours in June and July of Japanese coming in, and those numbers are strong. So again, it's not a disproportionate, it's not only in winter destinations, there's the potential. But I think when we go backwards and say, where are we in Niseko? Today, we have to go back and say, what about airlift? And I think when you looked at, again, I go back to some of the numbers shown earlier, is they look at markets which were fast rising, Thailand, these type of markets. This is because of airlift. You can't stay there if you can't get there. And probably in a post-COVID world, what we see is there's more volatility to these markets, which soared over the past 3 or 4 years. If we're at the beginning of, you know, we're in the middle of 2020, we're saying, where is the market going? We have to look back and say the airlift will be changing. I look at why the market changed with Thailand. I see Thai Airways flew there, Thai Asia X flew there. That may stop. So that will diametrically change tourism, and it will change the property market in Niseko because there's a knock-on impact. It doesn't mean it's it doesn't mean it's just going out, nothing else is coming in its place. Where is the airlift going to come? So I think that's going to be critical when we look at what's the transportation to Chitose Airport coming in, and where's there's going to be the growth. And for me, it's still China. Mainland China is critical to the growth trajectory of Niseko in the future. You know, again, we see North America, we saw the Icon Pass and these type of things, possible airlift in those places. I think we have to take a view of saying, what's the next 2 or 3 years? The Niseko market, like all of Asia, is going to change. Tourists will change. That's going to drive the property market. People who buy property in Niseko, again, are lifestyle oriented, they're investment oriented. But I think we're going to find more users after post-COVID. We're going to find people who are more realistic expectations of yields. I think when people say, why are you buying property? There's a life cycle of resort property. Certainly when you have kids, you see buyers in Niseko from Hong Kong or Singapore. They bought, their kids were young, now their kids are leaving their homes, and people are selling down. So again, and that goes back to that cycle again. We see people who will hold property for 6, 8 years, and then they're going to be divesting. So we are seeing a transition where we're going to also see the emergence of a larger secondary market in Niseko real estate. That's also interesting for me. I love Niseko. I think it's one of the best places on earth. You know, we always go up during the summer. I think it's fantastic, but there's a lot of unexploited potential in Niseko. I think when we talked before about food tourism. You know, we've done a lot of work here in Thailand on farm to table. We've got Michelin star restaurants in Bangkok who are buying from Chiang Mai. Niseko doesn't get its due in terms of doing this farm to table tourism. In terms of that, there's a lot of upside in this. You know, we've seen wellness certainly in other parts of the world grow. We don't have that many wellness resorts in Niseko. Again, that's another thing where you're going to have people come summer, come winter. It's a strong profile for guests. So I think what Niseko has to do for tourism or for property is find these niches which are unexploited and create different products and different segmentation. Get beyond the ski mountain, get beyond the one-night summer stay and say, what other things can we do to grow our businesses? You know, we've talked before, certainly I live in Phuket and international schools have changed. I understand the challenges of why it's hard to do in Japan, but longer term, if you want to have people who stay there and grow their families, at one point you have to make a decision where you have to move out because your children have to go to a broader international school. So you need that facility. So again, to me, it's segmentation going forward. But I think one thing, fundamentally, Niseko is a very strong market for real estate because at the end of the day, you don't have leveraged buyers. You've got buyers who are bought on cash. They're going to ride currency swings and everything else. They're taking a longer term view. So it's a solid real estate market. But I think now Niseko 2.0 is about tourism. It's about saying, what are these hotels going to do to grow the business? We saw places like Zabaran come in and do an excellent job creating a niche offering, high-priced offering, exciting stuff where they're able to get that in the market. You know, most of the Niseko tour, the condo market's not geared towards hospitality. And I think we'll see that shifting away where people start building more dynamic hospitality offerings. That's very important to the market. So I think that's what I think today. I know we're running short of time. You will get by facts and figures. You can go through all this graph and everything else. But I wanted to take a broader look about what do we think is going to happen in Niseko going forward. Again, it's a solid market, but we're going to look at airlift. What's going to happen with airlift? You know, certainly that's key to it as well. You know, look at the domestic market where we see the Shinkansen coming into Kuchin and these type of places to change the market. And look at how the new hotels are going to be adapted in the market. You're going to get different kinds of tourists. So exciting time. But again, this is Niseko 2.0. It's no longer the Niseko you've known in the past and start of a new cycle. Over to you, David.
Thanks, Bill. Well, I think you've managed to answer nearly every single question that either we've been asked now or previously. So thanks for that. But however, we will go over some of them in a little bit more detail. It's fascinating what you say about the second cycle and about the growing importance of tourism. I'm going to cover some of these issues. We've not got that long for too many questions, so I'm just going to shoot a few out. Jonathan, I know it's kind of late where you are actually, so I'm going to give you the first question. There's this question about ski infrastructure. You know, how much volume can actually the ski infrastructure cope with at the moment in Niseko? And what are the plans? Are there any plans to upgrade?
Yeah, the interesting thing on that is that the current infrastructure, if it was all up to date and operating every day, it would have a massive uphill capacity. But as many people who have skied there know that many of the lifts are decommissioned or not operating. So there are plans to gradually upgrade those. And that's sort of been driven by one really coming from the Hanazono, from PCPD's efforts out there. So they've really started a plan. They've got new lifts going in this year, and that will force the other operators to now address that capacity issue and to push it up there. I know YTL had some plans earlier to cap the gondola a little higher, a little lower down the mountain, which reduces its wind down days. So there is the capacity to do that. I'm not sure if there's a cohesive plan because there's 4 owners to that mountain. So I do know that that's an ongoing discussion with them trying to work out, you know, a structured and systematic upgrading of the lift infrastructure.
I mean, we talked a lot about development and about the growth of the destination. In terms of broader infrastructure, you know, can Hokkaido as a broader island cope with the expansion of the real estate and hospitality market outside of Niseko?
Oh, absolutely. It is just a question. And to be fair to the local towns and governances, is that it's exploded so rapidly that they just couldn't imagine that the capacity would hit them that fast. So the plans in terms of sewage treatment and water, they're probably about 5 years behind us. But if there's one thing the Japanese do very well, they will catch up and they will over-engineer.
Thank you. Gordon, Pavilions is such an experiential brand, and I know you talked about experiences when we were chatting earlier, and you talked about food. I really think you've hit the nail on the head with food in terms of food tourism. But what other things can people do? I mean, Holy Grail really just seems to be the summer. If Hokkaido can nail the summer in terms of attracting more than the domestic market, it's going to be really going places. What sort of things can you do? What sort of energetic, adventurous things can you do that are going to appeal?
You can get yourself eaten by a bear if you go to the north of the island, which is happened. So carry a loud bell might be a piece of advice. It's just unspoilt up there. It really is unspoilt. There is driving, and don't underestimate that. I mean, there is no young-blooded guy who doesn't enjoy, as I've said earlier, getting in the car and driving on unobstructed roads. So for the pure joy of driving around the island in beautiful countryside, you've got the lakes, you've got the mountains, you've got walking. With our sister company, Revivo, we'll be opening an onsen. And Revivo is all about wellness. So as Bill said, that we need to segment the market, and we're going to get onto the wellness, which we hope will be an attraction in the summer as well as winter. The usual things, getting out into the wilds. We do have a surprise coming. I'm trying to manage it. You know, the Japanese are not too happy with importations for a lot of reasons, but I think we're going to see something quite unique come out of Mongolia and try to install it there. So watch this space. I've been promising things for the past 3 years. So I don't want to over promise and under deliver. So we shall see, but the opportunity is there. And correction to my earlier statement, It is, in fact, Emilia Lopez, Director of Sales. Not my sales girl. And she's done a fabulous job. If she's still listening, Emilia, you've done a fabulous job, and all of those who have been helping you and assisting there. So
brilliant. Credit to Emilia, but mum's the word on the other project. Okay, Gordon, thank you. Eddie, quickly, Eddie, quickly on the domestic, I don't know, domestic pivot, if you like. I mean, how's it gone? You know, how's it really gone? Has it just helped you survive, or have you actually enjoyed some great experiences with the domestic market that's really helped your business?
David, it's been way better than what we had hoped. I mean, you know,
awesome.
As of June, it was looking pretty dire, and we were really, you know, reconsidering our decision as to, you know, keep the full complement of staff on board. And then we just had this pivot in July when they started the Go-To campaign, the Don't Worry campaign, and it's been fantastic. And the big benefit, or the long-term benefit, is that, you know, these people know that there is a winter in Niseko, and because they can't travel this winter, most likely to Europe, North America, or wherever they would go for a ski holiday, hopefully they'll come back. You know, we've made those connections, and we've pre-marketed winter to them, and hopefully we'll convert.
That's fantastic. A quick one here. Will there be COVID restrictions on ticket and lift capacity in the ski season, like in the snowy mountains in Australia? Who wants to take that? Andrew.
Look, I haven't heard of any restrictions so far. There's rumors going around the town daily. Some are saying that maybe some of the gondolas won't be in operation. I guess that will increase social distancing, and you won't be all trapped in a little bubble for 10 minutes going up the mountain. But that's the only thing I've really heard. But again, it's simply a rumor.
Okay, thank you. Shiori, I've got a quick one for you. And then I'm going to have one closing comment from Bill. Shiori, if you have a look at next year, what can we expect to see next year? Just a quick forecast from you.
We are providing the forecast report as STL, but only provide the forecast report for Tokyo in Japan. So we don't have the official forecast for Niseko, unfortunately, but our global perspective, the international travelers, such as sourced from the Australia and Chinese travelers, will be coming back in 2021, from next year. So it's not going to be the same level as the 2019, but at our overall forecast perspective, that next year will be recovering with the international travelers.
Recovery next year. That's what we want to hear. Bill Barnett, any closing comments, please?
I think two things. Jonathan, you raised your hand. You had something to say about the lift capacity. Did you, in terms of COVID? Can you come on? Are you there?
Yeah, look, as of last week, the plans, unless it deteriorates, is really the only impact at the moment is they will be shutting down night skiing out of the gondola out of Hirafu. And that's really the only plan that they have at the moment.
That's a great update. And maybe, Jesus, I'm scared about those bears that Gordon was talking about. I'm not sure about it.
Ring your bell, Bill.
Go bear hunting. One thing we know in a post-COVID world, we always say, is life going to change? Niseko is on brand for where our world is going. People want to escape. They want a natural, everything. Every time we're talking to anybody now, the world is going to change and people are looking for these type of things. And no better brand in the world would really demonstrate where we're going than Niseko. So I think that's really a bright view. It's going to be a hard couple of years. Do I think traffic's going to come back in 1 year? Not a chance. It's going to be a longer 2-3 year cycle to go back, but Niseko's on brand with where the world's going for travel. So spot on.
Excellent.
David.
Bill Barnett, thank you. Jonathan, Gordon, Shiori, Andrew, Eddie, Vincent, Jules, thank you so much for joining today. There'll be a recording shortly afterwards. Have a great day. All the best.
Thank you.